Merry Christmas indeed, everybody. Good to see you guys. Let me just pull this out for myself. Great to have you guys back here. I guess the freeze has thawed slightly, so here we are again, resuming this little moment together, and it really is great to be together, even if it is in this fashion. So thank you guys for signing up and being here, and if nothing else, I think we're getting pretty dang flexible about this whole thing. It's good to see you guys all. Well, I guess I'm not seeing you, you're seeing me, but either way, good to have you here if you're online. Thank you for tuning in and staying connected and a part of everything happening here. And what a time, you guys. We're already into the month of December. It's Christmas season, and it's a good time, even if everything else doesn't feel awesome, to remember something that's really important to the Christian faith, which is the birth of Jesus into our world. And I want to talk a little bit more about that here this morning, because it's something that Christians should regularly do. It's why Christmas and Easter are kind of big markers on the annual calendar for the Christian church, because these are both significant moments to remember and have a lot of deep implications. And no matter how many times we have been through this whole journey of the Christmas and Easter sort of routine, there's always a level that God wants to allow it to saturate a little bit deeper into our souls. So all that being said, I want to give a few shout outs before we dive into our passage here this morning. And the first is just to say, I know this has not been the easiest of years. Many of us have all kinds of four-letter words we'd like to attach to 2020, I'm sure. But I just want to say how amazed I am at this church and how proud I am of this church, of just how generous of a people that you really have displayed yourself to be during this past year. At our Light Up the Night event that we just had this past Friday, so many of you have not only donated food items for families in need in our community, but so many of you have also taken the little tags off of our Christmas trees we have here to provide gifts for a few families in need that we're supplying them for. So you guys have just been a huge blessing throughout this whole COVID time. And it's a really amazing testimony to see, because it's very easy when times get tough to kind of just circle the wagons and think about yourself and just kind of manage your own life. But to consider the needs of others more highly than yourself and to be as generous as you've been has just been really great to be a part of. So thank you guys for doing that and responding in the ways that you have. And secondly, we've also been in a building campaign that's obviously got us into this building that we're in now. And we had a campaign to get our phase 1 renovations and repairs done and a budget set for that. And our goal was to be done with that by the end of this calendar year 2020. It started before COVID, and you guys did not let COVID slow you down. And I'm here to report that we are now at 98% completion of phase 1. Super great. So if you haven't yet given to that, I would love to have you join in. We're already starting to save in our budget for phase 2 so that we can get some of our internal projects going here and make this place very usable and very able to be a huge blessing ministry-wise. And so anything extra obviously is going to go right into phase 2, which is amazing, and we'll let you guys know more about that in the years to come. But some of you guys have pledges that you've got a little bit yet left to fulfill, whatever, just your friendly reminder to do that. Let's knock this thing out in the next few weeks, and we'll have a huge celebration, because this is a huge milestone that we're accomplishing together, and we did it in the middle of a pandemic, for crying out loud. So bonus points for that, I think. I'm pretty sure bonus points for that. So all that being said, you guys, I love you, I appreciate you, and let's talk about Christmas here a little bit, you guys. Christmas is a very big deal. I want to jump into the book of Matthew, chapter 1, to set the scene, not just in terms of what happened, but then I want to process what it really means and why it really matters. As much as I appreciate the 6-pound, 8-ounce golden fleece diaper Jesus, the Ricky Bobby version, I think there's more to it than just the nostalgia of a baby lying in a manger. This cute scene. This is a significant moment for Christians to ponder and weigh and consider. Specifically, we'll start from a little bit more of a higher up, maybe theological level, but I want to get really, what does this mean in terms of our day-to-day well-being? How does it actually impact us and matter to us, not just during one season of a year, but what does it perpetually mean for us throughout the duration of our lives? So let's begin in chapter 1 of the book of Matthew, right here at the beginning of the New Testament. And it begins with the life of Jesus and the birth of Jesus specifically. Verse 20 is where we'll start from. This is a conversation God is having with Joseph, where he says, "But after he considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, 'Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins.'" And Jesus' name means the Lord is salvation. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet many hundreds of years ago. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. So this is probably one of the lengthiest themes or threads that you would have found from the beginning all the way to the very end of the Bible. If you were trying to summarize, well, what is God's heart? What does he most deeply want with us? What does he most deeply want to have with us? And it's connection, it's closeness, it's relationship. He desires to commune with us and us with him. He desires, maybe in the most simplest speak here, is simply to be with us. This was his desire. He made us for a love relationship, ultimately with himself and also to have with one another. Now, the story of the Bible goes sideways where we actually run away from God, but the immediate response of God is actually to chase after us. I get in some of our more modern sort of spiritual speak and talk, and even sometimes in our Christianese sort of speak, we can use terms like I'm seeking God, or I found God, or I'm kind of pursuing my spirituality, or like whatever that might be. But if you really want to get to the raw essence of the biblical story, it's really more about God seeking us, God finding us, God's pursuit of us. And it's not that we don't ever reciprocate or ever respond to his pursuit, but we certainly never initiate. God is the one that's been chasing us down from the very beginning of the story, from when we left him. And our distance from him is something that he has been planning to overcome so that the fulfillment of his desires could actually be accomplished. Like he says in the book of Leviticus, which I know you've all studied very intensely throughout your life and received significant devotional value from. I've actually just worked through the book of Leviticus in my own devotional life, and I feel like I'm better for it. I think I'm better for it. Well, there's actually some great stuff in there, and in chapter 26, God actually says everything that he's doing and laying out with all the sacrificial system and ceremonial details of the Old Testament was for the end goal, that God might walk with his people, that he might live among and walk with his people. And that was in a very proverbial sense, but it gets fulfilled in Jesus in a very literal sense, where God would literally be with us and walk among us. And though you can get lost in the details of the Old Testament and the Bible in general, because it seems like a lot of rules or laws or ceremonies or so on and so forth, they were all designed to simply bridge the gap and make a way so that God could be with us, until they found their fulfillment in the Son of God born into our world, taking on human flesh. And that God would actually not just be with us in some, I guess, theoretical sense, but in this very concrete sense in which he actually came to be with us and actually became one of us. That he actually took on human flesh. It's called the incarnation. That he became human, didn't lose any of his divinity, but became human 2,000 years ago and entered into our world, entered into our story in a way that is absolutely undeniable. And it expresses not only the radiant heart of God to be with us, but his desire for us to be with him as well. And for us to be with him and to trust him, to know him, to love him, to have all the factors of a healthy relationship satisfied. The truth is that many of us wrestle with that, because at the very least, God is such a difficult thing to figure out on our own. Well, who is God, and how would I even connect with him or be with him? And it's the tension that we have as finite beings here, trying to connect to an infinite, invisible being, wherever there might be. And the truth of the matter is, and C.S. Lewis even wrote about this, is that the truth is that us as created beings trying to somehow conceive of or know our Creator is akin to Hamlet trying to know Shakespeare. Or, in order to continue my Star Wars analogies over the last several weeks, because this is a really hot streak, if Luke Skywalker were to ever know George Lucas, how would that ever happen? Well, the only way for a Hamlet to know Shakespeare is if Shakespeare actually decided to write himself right into the story alongside him. And this is exactly what God has done in his Son. He's actually written himself right into the middle of our story. So that the idea of God revealing himself to us was not some abstract deal. It was a human child born into our world that grew up and knows what it is to live the human life and actually walked among us as human. One of the most famous theologians, and at least in American church history, is a guy by the name of John Wesley. And John Wesley is famous for being one of the founders of the Methodist movement, if you know anything about the Methodist Church, which had some really amazing roots in some of its historical background. But he was also an incredible theologian, incredible hymn writer, did probably more for Jesus than most of us will ever dream of, probably knew more theology than most of us will ever dream of, probably forgot more theology than most of us honestly will ever know. That was John Wesley. And at the end of his life, when he gave summary to what is the best part, what is the best part of the gospel, what is the best part to Christianity, he said in summary of it all at the end of his life, best of all, God with us. That's it. That's it. Whatever you want to say in terms of the cross and the resurrection and even Christmas morning and him being born into our world, all of it towards the ends that God might be with us. And with us, not in some sense that he just walks alongside us, but actually became one of us. He actually became one of us, took on human flesh so that we might somehow know him better, deeper, that God wouldn't just be alongside us, but actually be united to us. And if you look forward into the biblical story, even into the book of Revelation, and how this whole thing is going to turn out in the end, the humanity of Jesus is never going away. God has forever united himself to us, and that is going to be a permanent reality for all of eternity. Now, this sends such shockwaves through most conservative churches, not because we don't believe in the humanity of Jesus, because we so believe in the divinity of Jesus that sometimes we undersell the humanity of Jesus, as if both of them together in this beautiful tension that can't fully be comprehended is something that we can just play games with, as if we can let go of one or the other as we desire or feel more comfortable. But the truth of the matter is that God with us is not only the amazing expression of God's heart, but it is the fulfillment that comes when a baby gets born into an animal feeding trough, right into the middle of an oppressed people group in the Near East. This is the amazing news of Christmas, that God came and he is still one of us, with us. And this is incredibly good news. But other than just being an idea to contemplate, I think the question really remains. What does this actually mean for us? How does this actually affect us? What does this mean for our actual well-being? And to do that, let's just not talk about what happened at Christmas, but let's talk about the meaning of it. And let's do that through the book of Hebrews. A lot of Christians have tried to attempt to make sense of this whole thing and to write it down and pass it on to other Christians as well. The author of Hebrews, he took a pretty good stab at it. So let's see what he had to say. Book of Hebrews, chapter 4. We're going to start from verse 14 here. He writes this, the author does, "Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith that we profess, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize for our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way just as we are. But he did not sin. Now let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need." Now, you may not make the instant connection that this has anything to do with Christmas, but in so many ways it absolutely does have to do with Christmas. This author of Hebrews is talking about the reality of Jesus' function as our great high priest. Now, a priestly function is just somebody that helps to connect the divine to our world, the divine as some kind of mediating bridge to whatever God wants to relate to. Jesus as the great high priest means that he is the bridge. He's the connecting person from God to us. And as the great high priest, born into our world taking on human flesh, what we're told here is that he knows exactly what it's like to live as human, to be tempted and tested in every way that we are, and yet he was without sin. Therefore, one of the most practical things that benefits us and helps us to anchor us in this life in a very real, emotional, tangible, and practical sense is the reality that Christmas means that Jesus is like us. To know him, to benefit from him, starts with this beautiful premise that he actually became one of us, so uncomfortably like us that you and I can identify with him on radical levels of solidarity. Now, Such radical, in fact, that it might actually be a little bit uncomfortable to think of God on the level of life that you and I live. The monotony of just going through a daily existence, of work and hygiene and family and conflict and relationships. He's walked through it all. And one of the ways that the Bible highlights Jesus shares in the common human experience is in his sufferings. Meaning in this world, there's just pain, and there's a lot of it, and none of us are immune to it, though we've all experienced it to quite varying degrees. And what some people really wrestle with, oftentimes in the question of God, is not is he just really there, but does he really get me? Does he really get what I've gone through, what I've been through, how much it's hurt, how much pain it's been? Does he really understand the inner turmoil I might feel if I'm walking through anxiety or depression, or if I have a sense of identity that I'm trying to figure out, or if I'm not sure it even aligns with what I think the Bible says is true about me? Does he really understand what it's like, how difficult it actually is to be me? And one of the things that Christmas tells us is not only is that answer profoundly yes, but if you were to reverse that question, God might look at you and say, oh, I get it. Oh, I get it, but I don't know if you do. I get what it's like to be human, but you've only lived a small sliver of it, to be honest. Suffering, I know a little bit about that. And sometimes we don't equate Christmas with suffering, but keep in mind that the suffering of Jesus may have found its climax in the cross, but it didn't begin there. Jesus was born into grinding poverty, under the boot of oppression, in an animal feeding trough, for crying out loud. That's where he was born. That's what he was born into, to a mother under suspicious circumstances, to a father that left at some time early on in his childhood. We don't know for what reason. Most likely he passed away. Jesus raised by a single mother, deeply poor, all the people around him suspicious of him, the people that were supposed to be closest to him didn't understand him, betrayed by his closest followers, lied about continually, and had every physical, emotional, verbal sort of abuse happen to him on extreme levels, obviously up to the point of his murder on the cross. But you don't get around the fact that there is no suffering that you've ever experienced that Jesus can't look you in the eyes and say, yeah, yes, I know. And sometimes out of our own pain, we say no, but you don't get it. And unless you get it, unless you really get me, then you aren't really qualified to stand along with me or to help me or to speak to me. And Jesus, uniquely in all the universe, can look at you and say, oh, son or daughter, not only do I get it, I'm not sure if you do. I don't know if you quite know the pain that I've been through, but I certainly know the pain that you've been through. He's like us, tempted and tested in every way that we are. Every moment in which you've been lonely and tried to satisfy that through lust or greed, every moment when you felt the pull to just distance yourself from God and do your own thing, fulfill your own 3-year plan on your own terms, he's felt all of that. And yet, he remained faithful. He did not sin, which is the flip side of Christmas. Not only does Christmas mean that Jesus is like us, but it means that Jesus is also profoundly not like us. And this, when you put it together, some of us just have this view of Jesus that of course he's not like us. Of course he's so separate from us. He's holy. That literally means he's unique according to any other thing in the universe. And we're unholy. There's this thing we are not anything close to him. He is in no way comparably like us. And Christmas would tell us profoundly, oh no, yes, he is. In all the ways that it means to be human, in all the ways of solidarity that we've experienced this world, yeah, Jesus gets it. Totally like us. And yet, he's not like us. And this is good news on a day-to-day basis, because the reality is, for Jesus to be not like us means he can actually help us. How many of you know it feels good to just have people around you that can share experiences with you? How many of you have ever been through hard things in your life and then come across or met people that have been through similar things and you just realize, are we going to be friends? Yes, I think we are. Name a dinosaur on 3. 1, 2, and you just and you're just on the same page right away. And it's amazing to find people that you know get you. right? People that have maybe experienced some of the background that you've experienced or have the same passions that you have. All that's really great. And sometimes when you're just struggling in life, it just feels good to have company. If you're drowning in the pool, at least there's someone to drown with. But at some point, you get tired of just struggling with everyone else on the struggle bus. And you wonder, can someone please just drive this thing and make it better? Sometimes friends are great when they can commiserate with you. But at some point you start, can anyone help me? There's a moment when you're walking through an addiction and you can meet someone else that's actually in that addiction as well. And it's this alleviating moment of like, I'm not the only one. And I'm not just this unique, isolated, random person that fell into a pit that no one else has experienced. And you can look in the face of someone that can understand you even before you open your mouth, and it's amazing. But if you ever get to the point of actually wanting to be healed or actually wanting to move forward to gain victory or take steps out, solidarity alone won't do it. You're going to need someone who knows the way. You're going to need someone who has power. In the metaphor of the pool, you don't need someone drowning in it with you. You need a lifeguard who actually knows how to save you. You need someone who can actually lift you out. Jesus is not like us. He is not like those friends that you have that just validate every time you whine and complain to them about everything that's wrong with your life. And typically we assume it's everything like out there in our life. Well, my boss is terrible and my boyfriend is awful. And like, these are all the wrong things. And you just get that friend that's just the ride or die. And like, yeah, that is all awful. Everything in the world is terrible. If everything in the world would just fix itself, you'd be fine. You'd be totally fine. You know what? Boys are the worst. You just need to date yourself and be the best version of you. That's what you need to do. Like, you ever have those friends? They're well-meaning. They're like you. They're with you. But they can't actually, and here's the key, help you. Because they have to be not like you, not susceptible to the lies and the folly and the sin that you and I are. And Jesus, born on Christmas morning, comes into our world not just to be like us, suffer with us, and be tempted in all the ways that we are, but he overcame. He never bowed his knee. He never gave in. And so when we watch him, we not only get to be with him, we get to follow him. We get to follow him knowing he knows where he's going. Jesus has taken the wheel, thankfully, and this struggle bus is not going to be here forever. He's taking it somewhere. He's going to lead me somewhere. Now, it's one thing if you just have someone throwing you advice from 100 yards away that has no idea what you're actually going through. That's never helpful either. But Jesus simultaneously knows what it is like to be human and also knows what it's like to overcome. He's like us, but he is also profoundly, amazingly, incredibly not like us. And what this means, what this does for us, is it means that we get to be with God and helped by God. And listen to the commands that the book of Hebrews gives in that little passage. It said, hold firmly to your faith and then approach boldly the throne of grace, or with confidence, depending on the translation you read. But the idea is the same. Hold firmly to faith, approach confidently his throne. Hold firmly, approach confidently. Hold firmly, approach confidently. Here's what it does. I hold firmly to faith. Here's the big deal. God being with us isn't something I always feel. Jesus never tells me to hold firmly to my feelings. He tells me to hold firm to my faith. Me feeling like God is with me comes and goes. Sometimes I'm with y'all and I'm worshiping and it's like the goosebumps, you know what I mean? And the hairs in the back of your head are all tingling and you're feeling like God is speaking to you and you're singing the song, but it's as if like that song was written for exactly where you are in your life. Or even moments where I've been in church, and you're hearing the sermon, it's like, oh, were they spying on me this week? You know what I mean? Did someone tell them did someone rat me out? Why are the words being said right now aimed directly as if like a sniper rifle straight into me? I've had those moments where as if God's presence is so undeniable. I've had moments where I've been so overwhelmed, it's like your body almost goes numb and sensitive at the same time. Where it's like all you can process. It feels like one drop in an ocean of love and mercy and grace. I've had those moments. They're just few and far between. But what I live by is not the feelings I get from God's presence. It's the faith that God's presence is with me. And on Christmas morning, his committed dedication to being with me was established. And even when he ascended and left physically, his lingering promise was that he would still yet be with me. His physical presence here in this planet was just a reminder that just because it's unseen does not make it unreal. And in some profound way, the unseen presence of God is more real than we ever get it credit for. And by faith, I trust that. By faith, I'm not alone. I can bring all the worst baggage of me right to King Jesus any given time. I don't have to be free of my mental or emotional struggles. I don't have to be free of all my sin propensities. I just bring it confidently and boldly right to him. I don't have to feel really good about God. I don't have to feel really good about church. I don't have to feel really good about reading the Bible. I don't have to feel anything. I just bring it boldly right into his throne room, and I dump it all down at his feet. I can tell him how I'm feeling. I can be feeling nothing at all. And I bring it right in there. And when I come to that place of living by faith and not by feeling, I receive the presence of God to know I am never alone. So take stock for a moment of all your worries, the stuff even last night you were laying in bed thinking about. Think of all your struggles, if you're being honest, that if other people in this room know about, you would blush in a hurry. Think of all the internal, tensions that you feel trying to reconcile who you feel like you're supposed to be and who, if you're being honest, you actually are. Take all those struggles right now. And Christmas means he's not waiting for you to catch up to where he is somewhere else. He is exactly where you are. You're not loved for your potential. You're loved for where you are now. He's like you. It's not as if he's going to look at you as some alien, like, oh, how could that ever happen? How could you ever struggle with that? How could that problem even occur? Are you from Mars? What is the deal? Jesus uniquely can look at you and say, oh, I get it. I remember when that trap was set. I remember when someone led me to that pit. I remember that moment. I remember that feeling. I remember that tension. I remember that opportunity. I remember that pull. I remember that lie. Let me show you how to trust God through it. Let me teach you how to walk out of the pit that you're in. Let me help you with mercy and grace actually move beyond where you are now. Not because I'm just going to let you stay here while I walk ahead and just say, hey, what's wrong with you? Get your stuff together. Try harder. Let me come meet you right where you are, point you to exactly where we're going, and then give you everything you need, whether that is second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. Hold firmly, approach confidently to receive mercy and grace, two things you never earn or deserve in your time of need. So many times we think our need of God disqualifies us from God, when it is actually the very reminder of the invitation he's given us to approach confidently. God, I'm having a hard time feeling you, having a hard time even believing in you right now. To which Christmas reminds us, hold firmly, come confidently. Not confident in how I feel or what I think, confident in him. He'll meet me there. That's what he does. He's really good at it. He's faithful to do it. And I trust it. And I learn to walk by faith. I learn that his presence is with me, regardless of how I feel. And I can take all of me right into his throne room as boldly as a 3-year-old into his parents' bedroom at 4 in the morning. I can just take all of it, the wrecking ball of my life, right into the throne room of God and get everything I need to be helped by his mercy and grace. Isn't that good news?